Hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to fucking Savage Healing. Yes. Hope you guys are having an amazing week. And yeah, spooky season is in full effect. And I'm so excited about it because Halloween is one of my favorite times. I am a horror movie junkie. So it is one of my favorite times of the year. I am a summer person because, I'm a Pisces, I'm a water person. I love summer, but I also do love Christmas too. I love watching my kids just opening up their presents and decorating the tree and things like that, which I've gotten more into the swing of things. I had been dormant when it came to Christmas since COVID, but now I'm pretty active when it comes to that. So just some quick updates. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel at Savage Healing AF Podcast. I do upload the video portions of this podcast onto there. And then I also do some other, long form videos and things like that on that podcast on different types of topics. Okay. Make sure you follow on TikTok as well at Savage Healing _AF. So I do talk about and give videos and advice on different types of topics. Remember, I am not a therapist, so a little disclaimer. I just give you real life, just advice and knowledge from things that I have experienced when it comes to divorce, motherhood, relationships, healing work, inner work, shadow work, all that stuff. So make sure you guys follow and everything will be in the show notes, okay? So let's get into today's episode because it's a very juicy one. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about how to stop abandoning yourself and having savage self-worth. Yes. Okay. Now, I'm going to be straight with you. You can't attract healthy love when you keep abandoning yourself. Now, what do I mean by abandoning yourself? You're ignoring your self-care. You're not taking care of yourself. You're putting everybody else's needs above your own. You are last to everything because you put yourself last, okay? You're not listening to your gut, your intuition on things that don't feel good for you, okay? You're avoiding or neglecting your needs. You're staying small, you're staying quiet, you're not speaking up and speaking your truth. That is self-abandonment. And I know sometimes when we get into relationships, or sometimes they could be family, or they could be friendships. Sometimes we self-abandon ourselves to not rock the boat, to not piss people off, to not, make them angry. And then all of a sudden they stop talking to you, or they break up with you, or they said, we're not going to be friends anymore. Okay. So exactly why does this happen? Because it seems to be common and it does happen. So it's fear of rejection. Like they're going to reject you. They're not going to hang out with you. They're not going to, call you, whatever the case is. Fear of the worst happening, like the shoe falling all the time, like the shoe is going to fall. Something bad is going to happen. So it's always fearing the worst, and always like, okay, you're bracing for the worst to happen. It could be conditioning, saying, oh, well, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be quiet. You're not supposed to talk. You're not supposed to share how you really feel. You don't have feelings, okay, which are all fucked up. And then there could be trauma. So trauma, surrounding, your kids aren't going to be fed properly if you don't do this. For example, that was a bad example, okay? So let's say, well, you're not putting your kids first. You're putting yourself first. So the kids are going to suffer. You're putting your spouse first and your kids second, or you're not putting your family, before your spouse. You see where I'm getting here? Okay. Which, to be really fucking honest, when you are married, your spouse comes first. And I know that's going to trigger the fuck out of you. And some people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that. Well, common denominator, and I'm going to explain this, is the reason your spouse comes first, because when your spouse pours into you and you pour into each other, you pour it onto your kids. The one thing that you want your children to see is two happy parents. So that's why I say your spouse comes first. Okay. Now, it's a different situation if you are a single parent, okay, and you are the only one taking care of those kids, okay? Or if you co-parent peacefully, or if there's no co-parent and you're a single mom, single dad, whatever the case is, okay? But let's just use this scenario. If you're a single parent, okay, and you have no partner, no spouse, no nothing, and it's just you come first. I know that's going to trigger most of you too, Okay. When I say that, the reason being is in the example I just said before, because when you pour into yourself, you pour into your kids. And the one thing that you want to see is your child looking up at you and saying, my mom is peaceful. She's calm. She's happy. Okay. What the fuck are you going to gain by neglecting yourself by putting the kids first? So you want to operate on an empty gas tank. Is that what you're trying to tell me? No, you cannot operate on an empty gas tank, okay, by putting your children first, because you're going to resent them. You're going to scream at them. You're going to yell a lot. I know, because I've been there. Okay. That's why self-care is fucking important, and you have to pour into yourself and you have to take care of you. So in the event of being a single parent, you are the priority. Your kids come second. In the case of if you're married, have a partner that you all live together and all that, you're married, whatever the case is, your spouse comes first. Okay. Your spouse comes first, and then your kids. I know some of you are not going to be okay with that, but that is proven. Why do you think some marriages, not all, some marriages do work out and people stay together for years and years and years? Because they pour into each other and then they pour into their kids. Okay. So think about that. Think about that before you get angry. So think about that. Okay. So the fear of why this happens as far as self-abandonment. Okay. And you're operating from an empty gas tank, like I just explained. Who wants to operate on autopilot on an empty gas tank consistently? And you're just, you're running on empty. That doesn't work. Okay. You can't operate from that because nothing gets done and you're not healthy. You're just going to cause more health issues when you are not pouring into yourself and giving yourself that self-care, giving yourself that rest and that relaxation. So perfect example, I'm going to go into a story. Because every podcast episode, I'm going to share a story because I share life experiences so that you can be empowered to be a better person. Okay. So in my marriage, I was silenced a lot. When I was married to my children's dad, I was not me. Okay. When he met me, I had a full-blown career. I was making good money. I had investments. I had money saved. I was in a very good spot in my life. Okay. And a few years after I married him, that's when everything started to deteriorate. It was the control. It was the verbal abuse. It was that I couldn't hang out with anybody because all that automatically I was cheating. And then it was no communication because every time I tried to communicate something that I felt that I didn't, that I felt, hey, this makes me uncomfortable. It was a screaming match. And you know what? I had already enough of that chaos. And because I had kids, I felt obligated that I had to stay. Okay. Because I was raising 3 children. So that I felt like I was obligated to stay, that there was no way for me to survive on my own. And he would instill these thoughts that that he was better than me. I wouldn't survive without him, that I would be homeless with the kids, and that, I would be nothing. And I'm just going to go running back to my mother, and I was a failure. So I lost myself. I lost who I was. I was a mom. I had 2 special needs kids, along with a stepdaughter that I was raising too. And honestly, I didn't know who I was. I was always operating on an empty gas tank because I was not allowed and I was conditioned to not do things for myself at all because he would get upset. Okay. And it turned into a situation that was not very healthy for me. It turned into a situation where I lost myself. It turned into a situation where I would get home from work and I would say, okay, I need like 5 minutes to just get, change my clothes, decompress. No, it was handing me a child and saying, well, I've been with the kids all day. Now you deal with it. Like no time to regroup myself. No time to just, just kind of prepare myself. Okay, what do I need to do with the kids? Do I need to do homework, get stuff ready, for the next day? And mind you, my ex-husband was a stay-at-home dad. He did not work. Okay. And I was working, and sometimes I worked 2 jobs just to keep the family afloat. Nothing negative against him, but things could have been better. And if he would have taken a little bit of what I was saying and communicated, things would have probably been a little bit better. But, sometimes things do not work out and certain patterns show you, hey, this is not healthy for me. And that's why the divorce happened. But when you lose yourself and you self-abandon yourself, it is very dangerous because you're operating from an empty gas tank. And then you're angry all the time and you're not happy. And why aren't you happy? And you're constantly angry and you have an attitude because I wasn't given time to just regroup and given time to just pour into myself. Okay. And doing the things for me to make sure that I had a calm nervous system. He loved to have me operate out of chaos when it wasn't necessary. Okay. And that's why I say you have to be self-aware when it comes to those things. And you have to have some self-awareness so that you know what toxic patterns are and how to deal with them. Now, how did I overcome and how can you overcome some of these things when it comes to self-abandonment? Like I said, you have to be emotionally aware. Does this feel good to me? How do I feel when this person, calls me names? How do I feel when this person does something that's very hurtful? You have to be very self-aware when it comes to that. And you have to have raw honesty. You have to get honest with yourself and you have to get honest with the person that is making you self-abandon yourself. Okay. You have to be very honest and very vulnerable. I'm sorry, but those are tough conversations. And if you want a relationship to work, you have to have those tough conversations. You have to. Okay. Or else it's never going to work. You're just going to stay in the same pattern and then you're going to end up resenting that person. Okay. And then you have to rebuild self-trust. You have to trust yourself to know, okay, this is not healthy for me. This is not good for me. I need to do something to get myself in a healthier space. Okay. So those are the things that you can do to overcome this. And please don't self-abandon yourself for somebody. It's not worth it. Okay. You have to do things to fill your cup. And if you have a partner that values you and that, empowers you and is your biggest cheerleader, trust me, they're going to pour into you and it's going to feel like the easiest thing in the world. Okay. Because somebody who loves you wholeheartedly and wants to be with you, it doesn't require a lot of work and it's very easy and it's very calm and it's very peaceful. Like you won't have to do anything because they will be there to just, do those things for you to fill your cup. Okay. Love is not hard. Okay. It is not. Relationships are a lot of work, but you have to show up every single day committed to not only being a good person for yourself, but also being a good partner to your person. Now, here's a little savage truth, and I end every episode with this. So self-worth isn't found. You build it every day. Okay. Let me say that again. Self-worth isn't found. You just don't find that shit anywhere. It is built every single day because you make a commitment to do that for you and to build that self-worth and to trust yourself and say, yes, I am worthy. Yes, I am enough. Yes, I can do this. Okay. So that is the episode for today. That is what I have for you today. Okay. So I hope that this episode was very insightful. Like I said, follow on TikTok because I drop a lot of good little nuggets and good videos as far as that. And I'm starting to dive in deeper into the whole healing inner work, talking about all the things that I just talked about at the beginning of the episode. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, where I will be dropping more videos on certain topics and starting to deep dive on that. Okay. And make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Share this with somebody who needs to hear this, somebody who needs to heal from their traumas, somebody that needs to do the work, somebody that needs to go ahead and live their truth and not live in this chaotic cycle, in this generational cycle, when you can do better and you can empower yourself to be better. Okay. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I will chat with you guys next week.